welcome back to Gross. Just a little bit of an introduction before we get started here. What you're about to see is a clip I recorded of me beating Bulwark, but without any voice recording. So this is all going to be post-commentary. I'll be basically watching it along with you. And this recording comes off the heels of like 12 different attempts of me trying different strategies and really nothing working the way I liked. And I kind of ultimately just settled on going with what I had before, but tweaking a couple of things and refining some of my techniques. Without further ado, let's get into Revenge at Bulwark. You're going to notice pretty quickly that I start things off a little bit differently. I learned after a couple of different attempts that focusing on economy, especially early, the earlier the better, really sets you up for late game. So I do a lot of focusing on getting my money set up, particularly getting an ATM that boosts my money deposited. The way I figure it, first couple of waves between the snipers and just my own guns, I can get this done a lot quicker. I also ended up getting around my mouse scrolling issue. So one thing I tested was just hitting the hotkey buttons on my keyboard to see if I can get to my weapons faster, and there still seems to be a delay, so it wasn't specifically my mouse wheel. The issue actually seems to be some of the kind of delay in the game when selecting weapons. So the way I got around it was just to have the weapons I really knew I wanted to use. So for me, it's literally just the rocket launcher and this weapon. This weapon gives me enough versatility in all the different things that I need to use. Very strong close combat with the vermin rounds. Obviously with the cash attachment, I can pick up cash all over the place with one shot. And then I can swap to full metal jacket if I need to. And as you can see, generally speaking, despite a couple of them getting through, the introduction here is a lot cleaner. Get a lot more money in to start with. There's also a clever thing. I consider it clever. It might not be that clever, but it was definitely integral to my success. When I start lining up my barricades, I do a little trick I'll point out when I get there. But a lot of this intro is going to be basically the same setup you saw before. And I start to kind of relax a bit too. I think this was the first attempt I'd made where I was like, you know what? Maybe don't worry so much about upgrading the ATM to pick up money. I wanted it to increase the amount of money that it was taking in when I gave it money, but I feel like focusing on the pickup radius and all that was more of a convenience based on how your setup is rather than a necessity. And since I was already doing the depositing myself, I'm figuring, you know what? I just want the ATM accessible to me rather than letting it do all the money picking up. So I kind of pull my focus away from that a little bit. That helps out my economy with some of my turrets and stuff later. I also have a stronger focus on what I'm doing with the drones. So I'm not worrying so much about them not picking up money, and focusing more on making sure I take them out before they leave to go dump the money. There's two different ways I do this. One is like this. I'll take it out before the countdown hits 0, and because if any cash deposits are around when it hits 0, the cash deposits disappear. So either I'll do that and make sure I can do it with enough time, usually 6 or 7 seconds, or I'll do it right before the counter hits 0, because when the drone disappears, the cash will explode all over the place after the countdown's over, and then I can still pick it up. Because it seems like the countdown from 1 to 0 is what actually causes the cash to disappear. Not sure if that's a bug or a feature, but I make use of it. Becomes kind of an important regular check-in strategy with the drones here. Now the thing I still hadn't worked out in all the different attempts that I had made was how to best deal with both the shield guys, especially in the later levels. Like the early shield guys in this next wave aren't too bad, but once they start becoming more numerous. And then like the guys who throw up all over everything and gum up my turrets, those become an issue. I didn't really figure out a good strategy to deal with the swamp monster guys. What I ended up coming up with, and like I kind of improvised, was just like a lazy strategy. But it's one of those, if it doesn't, if it's not broke, don't fix it type strategies. And so a lot of this setup here is going to be relatively identical. But I do try and keep my whole build as simple as I can. I also appreciate here that even when the countdown hits 0, any cash flying to you that you've retrieved with a little attachment doesn't disappear. It counts as like a separate entity, I guess. Yeah, at the very least I knew I wanted to focus on slowdown for these fans. Like the range could wait, the priority was slowdown, because I knew I had to jam up the shield guys to get enough time to pump lead into the back of their heads. Okay, yeah, so you see what I did here with the barricades? I'm intentionally leaving spaces. I expand this further throughout the rest of the maze I create here. But what this does is this creates a zombie filter so that I can separate the big zombies and the small zombies. Because when I was checking out the previous episode, one of the things I noticed was an issue was that a lot of the zombies that could hurt me from a distance, specifically the firemen and the detonator guys, they had access to me where I was, over on the side with the Berthas. But if I can get them to just beeline it away from me, straight to the RV, then I can technically sit safely over with the Berthas, keep them firing, and then the Berthas will take care of the heavies. That was the idea. And as you'll see, it has some pretty incredible results. I end up kind of panicking later, because I wasn't expecting things to go as smoothly as they did. But yeah, in the moment we're kind of still in the setting up phase. So a lot of this stuff, especially dealing with heavies and all that, still very manual, a little high risk here. But in general, you can kind of tell that I've definitely cleaned up a lot of how I handle these guys compared to my first run through. One thing it took me a little longer to realize than I guess I expected was that the ATM boost, the little 10% boost, isn't just for money that it picks up normally. It's also money you deposit. There's been a couple of times here where I would deposit like 11 and then I would jump up to 12 because of that boost. And that ends up also paying off huge later on. There actually comes to a point where there's so much money flying around that I actually meet the personal cap of 1,000 on my person. And then I'm too far away from the ATM to actually deposit it, so I had to set up a second ATM. I guess that's a good sign, right? Although, according to the lore, all this greed is kind of what caused all this mess. So maybe this is less of me becoming efficient at dealing with zombies and more me mastering this Ava virus. I didn't turn into a zombie. I turned into a Ava super soldier. Master your greed. Yeah, these healing zombies don't end up being too bad. Honestly, the leprechauns ended up being more annoying just because I still don't know if I get my money back from them. I think whatever money they drop is just their normal special zombie money drop. I think whatever they take, they take. And because they're so much smaller than everything else, with this tactic that I'm using here, just raining down shot pellets all over everything, they're completely, sheltered under all the big zombies. Also, one thing I wasn't focusing on, but I know you'll see in the end, was heavily affected by all this money strategizing. I ended up with a ridiculous score, and I wasn't even trying. yeah, toward the end of each wave here, if I'm just depositing a bunch of stuff, if the combo's still rolling, the game's like, oh yeah, we'll just add this to the score. And yeah, get some wild numbers. So I can see when people are actually trying to focus on getting onto the leaderboard, how doubling down on especially your economy and headshots and managing the drones and all that stuff, you can get some crazy numbers. Yeah, like last time I got one Bertha down. Bertha wasn't quite ready for use. I think even in the next wave, it's mostly just like still lining things up. And it does eventually come to a point where it's kind of funny where I'm like, okay, I need to get more damage on the field and it can't be just from me and cannons. So I end up dumping it into like machine guns and flamethrowers. Which you'll also see becomes kind of the bread and butter of why this worked. Now if I have to critique my previous attempt, at least the one that you saw, there were at least 11 other attempts I did not record. The last one that you saw, my first impression of Bulwark, I think my main issue is that I kind of was too... I think especially toward the end, I mean what ultimately lost me the match was me getting killed. The RV didn't fall. It took a bad hit, but I died. So one thing I definitely should have done was put down one of those respawn stations. But I think the main critique I can level at my strategy was that I was kind of too unfocused and spread out at the end. I had it in mind to try and experiment with things, and I think that ultimately costed me, having something more effective lined up. Now, I'm not familiar with the Tesla turrets, or the missile turrets for that matter. There's probably a better way I can utilize both of those. But yeah, I think going through this stage the first time on the hardest difficulty was not the best opportunity to experiment. But I don't know, getting to wave 16 still seemed like it was good enough for how sloppy I was playing. I don't take a lot of pride in a lot of the different ways that I play games, because I fully admit I'm not very good at playing video games. I just enjoy playing video games. But I am legitimately pretty proud of how this particular scenario works out, my revenge scenario. A couple of these guys, I end up trying to get a head start on them, and he pukes on me anyway. And actually, with the whole try not to worry too much about the drones strategy that I was implementing here, it kind of costs me later on. Like, it doesn't ultimately matter, but it does kind of cost me in the end. I do lose out on some money because they do return back to base to deposit after they've picked up enough. And there was one particular wave later where they scoop up, I don't even know what their maximum is, just a ton of money. And when I tried to shoot them down the next wave, they didn't drop anything, and I was like, oh. I think this is like the last major breach. So I think after this I get the Berthas powered up and the rest of my setup more or less smoothed out. Yeah, this guy almost gets me. Thing is, those guys aren't even that bad. It's really just I'm just lazy about strategizing how to defend against the puke. If it's not their puke, it's the swamp monster puke. And I think the worst thing about the swamp monsters is like it's yeah, I might have lost some money there. The swamp monsters are just like they detonate, you know. It's hard to plan where they're gonna go, so it's best to just kill them from as far away as possible. There we go, 2 maxed out Berthas, and I forget that they're maxed out. I check on them a couple of times, but yeah, this is where I'm like, okay, you know what? I cannot be the only gunfire on this range here. Need a little backup. The snipers are nice, but need to actually start tightening up this kill box. Kill box / kill filter. Yeah, I was actually... So, in this zombie filter thing, I would say I experimented with this at least one other time, but this attempt was kind of where I really decided to run with it, and I was very impressed at how well it worked. Now, some of the small zombies still do follow this path that the big zombies will follow, but enough of them try to just walk through the single tile openings that the filter basically just works the way I intended. And by doing this, yeah, a lot less firefighters are getting access to me. The detonators don't run to me as much anymore. There are a couple, but for the most part, I am entirely safe over here. Now, like the last wave, not the last wave, the last map where I had first implemented these double berthas, it's going to be pretty involved on my part. Like, I can't just go AFK or anything, but the simplicity and effectiveness of the strategy holds up to some pretty ridiculous punishment later on. Like, what you just saw there is essentially the same strategy I'm going to use for the rest of this map. It just keeps expanding more and more, keep lining up more guns, extending out the maze. I have to get clever at some point. Not clever, I have to work around zombies being clever at some point, because eventually this path ends up being what I guess the AI regards as not the easiest path, and so they try to path around it. But yeah, you'll see me deal with that at some point. Because I was wondering, I didn't do a lot of experimentation with it, but I was wondering exactly what the AI pathing rules were regarding like my build area. And long story short, yeah, the zombies can definitely path outside of your building area if you decide to inconvenience them in a way that extends out their path. They're like, you know what? I don't want to deal with your big crazy maze, I'm just going to walk around it. And I think normally that wouldn't be an issue because it would just be a solid wall of barricades, but because I'm doing this filter thing, they're like, I can walk through that. Yeah, especially along the sides of the walls where my RV is. There's like this one little space where I can't build, but I think is still pathable by the zombies. But for the most part, yeah, they kind of stick to the lines on the minimap, and I am also using that as like a guide to try and figure out where they're all coming from. But yeah, alternating between decoys, stun grenades, and just kind of keeping their timings perfectly lined up, keeping the berthas firing, keeping picking up money. It's a nice little rhythm I got going here. I'm not stressing out too much about keeping up on the money. I mostly just want to make sure I get enough money to continue to throw grenades. I also occasionally get lucky when I'm throwing the little money pickups down there that it also deposits it. But you can probably already see how eventually this will be an issue with me trying to deposit through zombies. Like, I can still pick up money over there, but I am not hitting the ATM. Yeah, it was a bit risky, a little close. Yeah, considerably cleaner than last time. Now, in between attempts, I was spending some time on the Gross Discord, and I was talking to, well, I guess I was just talking to chat generally, but the dev, Chris, ended up responding when I was thinking about different things you can add to the game, and I was like, it'd be kind of neat if we had like a player drone, either. And I was thinking in terms of like either for my own money pickups, which would be kind of neat, or an attack drone, or even just something to counter the other drones, but just something, a little like companion of some kind. And I was like, was there ever any attempt to make like a hacked drone or something for the player? And he was mentioning that it was actually originally in the plans to have the dog on the field with you, but he couldn't work out some of the pathing issues, so we did not end up getting a dog companion, but that was the plan. So it'd be cool to see if he does either a sequel or any additional content for this game to get like some other kind of companion to help you out here. I mean, we already kind of have the makings of something that works with the snipers here, so even if it was something like you have the dog sitting on the sidelines or something, and you could just kind of command it to bark, and then maybe get the dog's attention or something like that. So maybe like you wouldn't have to worry about the pathing, you would just have the dog serving as a kind of distraction, like a decoy, but maybe like out of harm's way or something. Yeah, I like the idea of like a hacked drone. Like maybe it's less effective than the regular drones, but just something flying around passively helping you out, especially on some of these bigger stages. Now, one item that you get that I have never actually used is the teleporter. That is also a good way to traverse like large distances, I assume. But yeah, something like a passive little helper and maybe permanent teleporters instead of like the single-use teleporters, the way that I think the item is intended to be used, could open up the possibility for like way bigger maps, and I think that could be kind of cool. Like instead of just having the bunker door here or just the museum entrance that we had, maybe have like a city block, so you'd have like a large area to try and protect or something. Maybe have like instead of trying to protect something specific like that, like the RV, maybe have like a whole city block, and you're basically just trying to prevent any zombies from escaping a building, but they're like coming out the door, jumping out the windows, so you have to run around the building to try and get them before they escape out the perimeter or something. So like instead of a protection type tower defense, it's more like a containment. Like keep the zombies in the area, don't let them escape. That could be kind of fun too. The dev did say he is currently focusing his game dev efforts on a like multiplayer game. No other details, just that that's kind of where his efforts are going at the moment. And just based on this, I'm interested to see what he's doing going forward. And I'm personally a sucker for like zombie games. All the different shapes and sizes they take. Yeah, I finally had a detonator guy coming after me. I think that was like the first one I'd seen in a while actually run at me from over here. I remember before when I set up those barricades thinking they would keep me safe, and the firefighters kept on throwing their axes over the barricades, and I was like, man, why can't I just steal one of these like zombie shields and stack that up next to my barricades to keep the firefighters from throwing crap at me? But yeah, just to as like a measure of how effective this filter is, I didn't even have to build barricades. That one random detonator runs at me. No one else is bothering me over there. Yeah, I was pretty proud of how well this worked. And yeah, we're slowly creeping up on where things really started getting difficult for me. But yeah, this is where I'm like, okay, I got a chunk of money, and I want to expand this, but what more can I do? Like, this is where I was like, you know what, leave the ATM alone, it's fine. All these guns are good. I don't need them doing anything fancy. Oh yeah, this is where I was like, you know what? How about I get ahead of this problem right now? Just to give myself a little bit of insurance. Protect against my own stupidity, just in case. Yeah, don't let something as trivial as mortality keep you from defending your base. Cool little bit of sci-fi tech there. Now, I've never I guess is a bit of a spoiler. I don't end up needing it, and I've never used it before. Like, I've never actually like died after having a respawn thing set up, so I don't know if they're like a one-time use thing. I assume they would say so if they were, but I do find it funny that the game gives you the option to have multiple spawners. Yeah, so I ended up opting to increase the amount of, like, I don't know what you'd call it. It's not really deterrence, it's more like just interference in this zone where I need the heavy slowing down a bit. So I was like, you know what, how about more fans? Extremely simple, cost effective, and the only real counter to them is the zombies who, you know, spit up all over everything. I can just set up multiple places where I can inconvenience the zombies, and I will. I also appreciate that this is one of those tower defense games that you don't have enemies who damage your towers. You know, some games will let you block the paths of the enemies intentionally, but instead of having the enemy or the game telling you, oh, don't build here, there must be a path, the enemies will just attack the nearest, you know, barricade or whatever. I appreciate that the enemies don't do that. They easily could. I feel like that would be not, you know, the worst concession to make for wacky pathing, but I imagine that would be just a lot less fun to play, especially if it's something like maybe the puke guys not only stop your traps, but they also like damage them or something. Like that would suck. Worse so with these swamp guys, if they blew up and they just, you know, sprayed goo everywhere, damage everything around them if they don't destroy it outright. Then you have to spend more money, you know, afterwards to try and repair things. That would be, I guess, an additional reason to have like a drone or something, to get like a repair drone to just sort of fly around fixing up your turrets or something. Or have some other special turret that shields and protects your other turrets. I don't mind those mechanics in other tower defense games when they show up, but I do appreciate that that's not a feature here. I will say I also appreciate infinite ammo. Kind of puts the focus more on the strategy and gameplay more than like resource management. Although that said, a like more survival focused version of this, like expanding out what you're doing here to feature like, yeah, ammo management, and maybe get yourself some food, get some dog food, all that other silly stuff like normal survivor games. Like a light survival mechanic would be kind of fun. Now, I know that the game probably would just receive like a lot of general criticism for being like so many other survivor games, but you know what, there's just a lot of those floating around right now, and it's because people like them. I feel like there's nothing wrong with, you know, applying what people like to your business strategy, especially if it ends up just being good. You put some light micromanaging mechanics into something like this, I feel like wouldn't be terrible. Maybe just a separate game mode or something. Well, if you want the pure hybrid tower defense experience like this, then you could play a different mode that's like post-game content. Your guy's just kind of surviving, riding around in the RV. Yeah, I think I remember this was the wave in my first attempt, where I was like, oh, there's no puke guys, it's all shield guys? Oh, this is no problem. This whole strategy's built to take out shield guys. And then I got just kind of stomped, because a bunch of them got through, beat the crap out of me. And that was when I realized, like, oh, you know what? I think I'm gonna die. I don't think this is gonna work. Yeah, this version was a lot smoother. I also don't know what the maximum range is. I don't think I've ever run to the like end of the line on the Bertha's targeting, but you could probably do a bit more than what I've done here to try and soften the zombies up before they get to you. And you could probably have them running a real long way. Like, this is already a farther stretch out than what was it? Dead end? No, not dead end. Whatever the map was that I first implemented the strategy. I think that was a very short run. Oh yeah, that was embarrassing. I intentionally held my shot and I was gonna wait. I was like, you know what? They're gonna come up for the cash and I'm just gonna nuke them both. And I shot neither of them. Yeah. Yeah, I fully embrace the fact that I'm not actually good at video games, and sometimes it really shines. Yeah, and I think this is also where I'm like, do I want to start implementing some new stuff? Like, is there something I can do with these guys? Because I was thinking about trying to make the little zombie filter a little more hazardous. But I was like, you know what, just stick to what I know works, and we'll go from there. And then I just apply that mentality ad nauseum to the rest of this. So one of the other additional things that works well using machine guns and flamethrowers with the zombie filter is when you jam up a bunch of enemies in one place, the machine gun can only target one enemy at a time. Like, yes, the flamethrower can only target one enemy at a time as well, but it can hit multiple enemies. The machine gun can only target and hit one enemy at a time. And when you jam up like all the heavies and all the light zombies in the one place, it's a lot less effective and you're not spreading out your damage as much. But when you filter out your zombies, you got just your light zombies coming in first, they're going to take all the attention from the machine guns and flamethrowers. And then any of the heavy zombies that get through the Berthas then can get all the attention from the machine guns and flamethrowers because there's no more light zombies to take up the attention. Now, that whole sentiment works until you get zombie volumes that are, well, they kind of just ignore any of those conveniences. There's just too many heavies, there's too many light zombies. But I think for the most part, getting enough money each time to continue to scale up my offensive capabilities works. And yeah, you can see here this nice comfortable rhythm just really working out. Decoy, stun grenade, decoy, stun grenade. Constantly rotating. Now there's probably some additional refinements I could have made to this whole thing, but again, I think this whole attempt that we're on, not even an attempt, this whole run is entirely based on if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I just apply that to everything. And it's the hardest difficulty, and it still works out. Yeah, this is where I'm like, oh god. Money. Yeah, I think that's where I finally realized I cannot entirely rely on just that one ATM. And I try not to normally put more than one ATM anywhere on any of these waves that I do, just because they're kind of expensive, and if you're going to use them for the passive money pickup, you need to be very particular about their placement. But the way that I'm using it, the placement mostly just needs to be convenient to me personally. So this is where I was like, okay, we need an ATM like right next to me. Because I'm just going to be sending lead down range, picking up money, and I literally just need to deposit it right away. So I just wanted to have it in my field of view, hopefully not getting puked on, because that was the other issue. And then I'm at no risk of getting like too much money on my person. Again, I'm an Ava super soldier now. I've mastered my power of greed, taking money away from the zombies. And they wish they had these toys. Yeah, more machine gun power. You really can't go wrong with the basics. And that's one thing I actually have fun with a lot in other tower defense games, where I'm like, okay, how far can I really push the use of the basic tower you give me? And I always appreciate when games are kind of aware of that, and they'll maybe make it so that it kind of caps out its effectiveness early on, but then later there's like either upgrades or other bonuses or whatever you can give it to make them useful again, so that you can technically implement strategies where you're like, I want to use just the basic tower and nothing else. And that is actually something I want to try sometime, is just machine guns. I'm sure it's doable. I'm sure it gets annoying after a while. But that I did not actually try after like 10 or 11 attempts before this recording. I did not commit to it. I was getting frustrated with trying to get other things to work. But I thought about it. I was like, you know what? Because I think you have, you start out with 1,000, and that's enough to get one fully upgraded machine gun and then put a non-upgraded one down, I think. And that's not a bad place to start, because that first wave or two are utterly devastated by a fully upgraded machine gun. But then it quickly becomes not enough, and again, because they can only target one enemy at a time. But I thought about it, I was like, I wonder if I, instead of trying to create some big crazy maze with all these other turrets and stuff, and fans or whatever, I wonder if just machine guns would work. And they might, but only really in their upgraded form. Unupgraded machine guns are more of a just kind of inconvenience for the zombies, and they're only really good for putting them down after they've been softened up by something else, either other machine guns or flamethrowers. And yeah, I think that would be the main issue with trying to do an all machine gun run. The flamethrowers are just too good. The flamethrower machine gun combo is so kind of perfect. They're trying to go all in on either. Yeah, look at the 80,000. Trying to go all in on either, you'd really feel that loss. So here we go, crawling up on wave 16. I was getting nervous here. Everything was working a little too smoothly. You see the RV has basically full health. It took a couple of hits, but it's doing a lot better than last time. I got a huge chunk of money here. I was nervous. I was like, alright, this wave killed me last time. I feel like I really messed up on my investments last time. So what can I do? Do I go for the sniper? Go for the mortar? And I was like, you know what? How about we just go crazy with this basic turret strategy? So make the filter more dangerous, get some more machine guns up. This whole kill box, just gonna line it up with all these basic things. I have enough money to max them out, so I might as well just throw them down. Don't worry about the targeting, just make them hit really hard. And then just try to stay focused, keep up the rhythm of what I've been doing, trust the system, and ride it out. But yeah, I was really nervous here. There probably is a better use of missiles and turrets, very expensive turrets that they are. And I would love to try them out sometime. But I was so kind of afraid that I was going to make a very bad, costly investment that wouldn't pay off. Especially after already losing to this wave. I was like, no, I'll just stick to what I know. Yeah, so we kind of set up 2 choke points here. It's not really a choke point specifically for the heavy zombies, but they get jammed up here between the fans, the stuns, the decoys, and they just get, utterly shredded by Berthas. And the other choke points, I assume, I can't see it, I can't check on it from here. I just have to trust that it'll take care of everything going its way. And yeah, boosting up the machine guns and flamethrowers and all that. It's the only thing I can really do to ensure safety over there. But yeah, look at this. Buttery smooth compared to last time. Look at this absolutely ridiculous amount of money I got here. So at this point I was very excited. Very excited, and then kind of a little more nervous, because I'm like, alright, I made it, and everything's going quite well. Is it going too well? So I still have a couple of waves to go, and I still got a lot of money and a lot of room to expand. I can still screw this up. So I was like, alright, well, I'll keep going with what I'm doing, and if this doesn't work, I'll know that it can at least get me this far, and it's going to be somewhere toward the end here that I can tweak some of my strategy. But it holds out. Also, I'm recording in my office here, and my dogs are in the room with me, so if you're hearing any additional silly noises and whatever going on in the background, that's them. They're napping at the moment, having some intense dreams. Probably dreading going for a walk today, because we had a couple of very, very nice days, but the rain's back again. But yeah, keep strengthening up each of the points that I have, either with fans to inconvenience or with damage, but the damage that I know works, and specifically damage that doesn't mess up my economy. Like, the flamethrowers and machine guns are not only cheap, but they also don't damage cash pickups, and when I'm not relying so much on ATM passive pickup, oh yeah, this is where I'm like, surely you guys scooped up a ton of money. I want some of that back. And then I didn't get anything, and I was like, oh, he deposited it already. Damn. But even after that, you can see, like, money has clearly not been a problem. Even after letting them get away with it. And I think they get away with it some more. Yeah, I was really tempted to put, like, missiles in or mortars, because I knew that they were very effective at, area denial and, clumping up a lot of damage. But I didn't know what my economic needs were going to be later on. And I was like, alright, I think my economy at the moment is strong, so I want to keep leaning into all the things that are working about it, and I think introducing something like a mortar or a missile might jam things up in a way that's going to cost me late game. Like at the very end. Like, I'm already late game, I guess, but no, I don't want to trip over the finish line just because I didn't have enough money. So I was like, you know what, just keep with the turrets that don't hurt my cash. Yeah, look at this ridiculous amount of money just flying around. That was a bad shot on my part. I definitely should have waited a little bit on that one. But yeah, just the money that I scooped up from them, like, they're sucking up a ton of money, so I know if I ever need a quick little cash explosion, I can cap them before they go and make a deposit in between waves. Nice little safety investment. Oh yeah, so this is where I was like, can I expand this? So I'm watching the mini-map up there. I'm like, so where are you guys going? See, I keep trying to like block them off up there. So obviously the heavies are going to be blocked off here, but I don't want the light zombies going through here either. Like, I want to keep the regular lanes that the light zombies are using open for them. I don't want them trying to get creative and run up behind me or something. So I'm trying to lay this out, watch the minimap. Came up to a little bit of a jam here, because they decided to start stacking up the machine guns. I was like, do I want them to turn in here? I want to keep running around. Now, one thing I was concerned about, and you might be seeing this as well, is trying to wrap the path for the heavy zombies around the light zombie filter could cause an issue with the machine guns and flamethrowers dividing their focus. It probably would be an issue under normal circumstances. And I also did not upgrade any of the machine guns and flamethrowers to be particular about who they're targeting. But, for whatever reason, it ended up not being an issue, and actually ended up just kind of helping jam up the heavy zombies even more. I think it's because the machine gun and flamethrower combo works so well to kill the light zombies that even if they couldn't take all the fire, what they were taking was still enough to just completely wipe them out. So even if they were trying to divide their attention between heavy and light zombies, I think it still ended up basically being fine. Now this is where I was like, okay, you know what? If this is going to be far away from me, I don't want the heavy zombies getting off scot-free. I don't want them just wasting their time running around. I want to hurt them. So I wanted to put a sniper down, and I wanted it focusing specifically on the heavies. That probably could have been something else. That probably didn't need to be a sniper rifle. But again, I wanted to make something that would hurt them in a way that wouldn't mess up my money. I didn't want it to be a missile. Missile probably would have been better. Oh yeah, you look at the minimap here, so I was like, what the hell? So I was like, alright, I'll steal a couple of barricades from over here. This would have been a nasty surprise if I didn't look at the minimap. Having somebody run up around me over here. Now, one thing I wasn't sure about is if the pathing was for all zombies or just for light zombies, because obviously a heavy zombie couldn't navigate that. And if it was a light zombie pathing issue, then I was like, uh-oh. Am I gonna have to put like solid barricade walls there? I really didn't want to do that. Yeah, just focus on the most dangerous ones around. And go from there. Still, at this point I was still like a little bit nervous, but just kind of generally surprised at how smooth this is all going. And waiting for the shoe to drop, I was like, you know, something's not gonna work, something's gonna fail, I'm gonna overlook something. Oh, this was an issue, yeah. Got a little greedy. Shooting down more drones than I really needed to, and then called the police on me. That's when I was like, alright, just leave the drones alone. They're gonna take some money and they're probably gonna get away with it, just let them have it. I cannot juggle. That was one thing that really tanked a couple of my other attempts that I didn't record. I was trying to be a little more aggressive about making sure that none of the drones got the money, and so I kept on shooting them down, which kept on calling in the missile drones, and trying to juggle not getting killed by missiles and all this other nonsense with the zombies. It just eventually became too much, and especially early on, when I didn't have a really good like passive defense setup, when I could take my attention off of some of my maze, it was just way too much. So yeah, this was one of the attempts where I was like, you know what, just relax on the drones, take them out occasionally, like maybe every other wave or something, but we cannot deal with the police drones. And they don't even really give you much. Like, I know they get you some points or whatever, but yeah, I'm sure you can farm them for points. But when you're just trying to survive, it's just not worth it. Besides this like whole shotgun money attachment, scooping up basically everything on the field every couple of bursts is doing work. Slipped up a little bit there. I was like, just shoot the cannons? No, don't shoot the cannons. Yeah, still personally pretty surprised that the alternating stun decoy method worked as well as it did. And I think one thing that helped it last as long and stay like effective as long as it did was adding those fans. Stun decoy fan combo is a good way to just completely lock up your heavy zombies. Now what I don't know is if you can stack the slowdown effects of the fans with the Teslas. I assume you probably can. That's probably why the Tesla slowdown effect isn't as strong. But I wonder if you can like really, really jam them up by combining those effects. Let me get some of my money back here. Now I don't have a good way to keep track of like which drone I shot down and which one I didn't, since they both just sort of spawn immediately, but I wanted to try and get this other one afterward, and I think it ended up not working out. Besides, I'm still on drone shooting probation if I want to stay out of trouble. That's what I'll call it. Yeah, I think this whole back half of my maze here was where I really could tighten up my strategy a little bit. Because at this point, I had a ton of money and I didn't know what to do. I think if I really wanted to lean into my if it's not broke, don't fix it strategy, I probably would have just, instead of lining up with barricades, I probably would have just lined it with machine guns or something. But I wanted some extra heavy damage there just to specifically deal with heavy zombies. So sniper rifles were the best I came up with. And I also wanted the sniper rifles far enough away, specifically from where they're pathing so they don't get thrown up on. That's also why I didn't want to go with Teslas. Like, as much as it would have been kind of nice to have an advanced tower over there that isn't killing money, but also hurting the zombies, I'd like the Teslas more if it was just like an area damage thing. Like, maybe they just kind of passively cause some static and slowdown damage around them instead of requiring 2 Tesla towers. Because I probably would have used them more, but I'm just so afraid of losing one to getting puked on. Oh yeah, this is where I ran into the money attachment having it like maxed out. Not money, I think it's like if you just shoot through it too much, it needs to like cool down or something. And so it just stops working. And that was the first time I'd ever actually ran into that. Like, I think I had encountered it at home when I had tested it out before, but I didn't know what was happening. This was the first time where I was like, what the hell? And it hadn't happened before because I'd always used burst fire. And I went like full auto there for the whole clip, and then eventually the attachment's like, alright, that's enough. So I lost a little bit of money there, but there's just so much going on now that it's like losing like $1,000 or $2,000 here is not gonna really matter that much. Or I guess it would matter more if I didn't have all these other like features in place here. Yeah, turrets or not the turrets, but the drones are saving up for retirement here. All right. So I got basically the setup that I'm going to use, and I think I lost all that money unfortunately because he collided right at 0. But I got a bunch of money. I got basically the build that I'm going to be using. This is where I was like really nervous because I'm like, okay, there's no way it's going to be just the same thing I've been dealing with, but a little bit more. There's going to be something extra. And if there was ever a point where suddenly my strategy was not enough, this would be it. And I hate in tower defense games when you find out your build isn't good enough right on the last wave. Like if it's one thing if it's like, oh, maybe you didn't manage your economy enough and you just didn't have enough defenses up, that's one thing. But if it's something special, like, oh, you should have had more of this particular tower up to deal with this specific type of enemy, and you just didn't plan for it, that's where it's like, oh, well, that sucks, so I wasted like an hour or whatever. That wasn't the case here. Oh, and this is where I was like, I have a little extra money after putting the sniper down, maybe I could put an extra fan down to slow things down a little bit. It didn't work out here because I forgot that you don't sell things that you've already put down at the same price that you put it down for if you put it down in the different wave. So I ended up just kind of losing money here, and I was like, well, alright, no more fans then. So the only thing I was really left with doing was expanding my my maze here. Yeah, this is definitely where some pre-planning would have been more helpful to me, but you can see the mini-map up there. Extending out that path inspired some of the zombie pathing to find a faster route. And I was like, okay, no, we're not doing this. And catching this on the last wave was also probably pretty critical. To have a couple of zombies running around the entire thing at the very end would be devastating, to say the least. Yeah, I really wish I could have gotten more snipers down. Maybe have been a little more creative with some of the more advanced towers like Teslas or whatever, but gonna have to work with what I got. We're on the last wave here. Yeah, I was sweating at this point because I'm like, man, there she is. Subject K. Big bad mama herself, and of course I missed that first round. This is where I was like, okay, I don't even need to worry about money right now. The last wave. I'm gonna use this alternate missile ammo and just cause as much damage as I can. Because clearly she was gonna require a lot more attention than anything else, and I took a couple of fire axes to the back of the head there. And yeah, as you can see, she is extremely tanky. And again, this is the hardest difficulty, so outside of anything you can do custom-wise for Endless, this is Ultra on story. So yeah, she's very, very tanky. But I was doing what I could where I can still see her. Bertha's didn't need my attention yet, so as far as I was concerned, I could still just lay a whole bunch of explosives downrange. And speaking of laying explosives, that's probably one thing I definitely could have done, is mess around with some of those single-use traps a bit more. But I'd already had so little experience using them, I didn't want to try experimenting with some other new thing, especially on a critical moment like this. So alright, I can't see her anymore. Just kind of have to hope that anything else I got causing damage over there is going to be enough to soften her before she gets here. Till then, keep up my regular routine that's been working. Stuck in the fans, decoy, stun grenade, Berthas, and this time I'm throwing missiles into the mix because I don't care about the money anymore. Can't take it with you, so... yeah, here she is. Still got, like, most of her health, and I was like, oh god. Yeah, she's huge, she's got a lot of health, she is gooing up everything around her. I think she's dropping ads too, if I'm not mistaken. When she bends down, I think she's like placing a small zombie down or something. Yeah, this is where I was like, okay, no more shotgun. Going full metal jacket, all headshots. I'll stun her if I can, but I just gotta keep all of my focus on her. She's the only one left. Yeah, coming down to the wire here. I don't even think my sniper turret's gonna hit her from over here. Oh, they can. Good, good. There it is. Bulwark, Ultra. Finally getting my revenge. Whew. Yeah, I had to just take a moment. Just let that soak in. Apparently there's another item here. Yeah, the deglooper. I don't know what that is. I don't know where it is. I didn't find it. I'll have to maybe mess around with that on Endless or something. But that is the last mission on story mode. Ultra difficulty. I still have to go back through and play some of the other levels on Ultra, but I think getting this done. And there we are, number 6. Not bad. Feeling pretty good. Yeah, that's going to be the whole of the new story stuff. I will kind of let the rest of this play out. A little bit more reading to do here, I think, actually. Then there's going to be some credits I'll let roll. Yeah, let's read this. Once the dust settles, you, Charlotte, and Lab are examined separately. All 3 of you show signs of Ava in your blood, but it didn't mutate or replicate at all. Blood is taken from all 3 of you to extract a potential cure. Thankfully, that's all that is necessary. You're all allowed to roam the facility freely, but you have to check in daily to get tested for any signs of Ava spreading. Charlotte works with the remaining scientists, analyzing your blood samples and synthesizing a cure. At first, you cherish the safety of this place and catch up on sleep. Lab is having a great time. He's the only dog here, and everyone wants to pet him or play with him. Charlotte is kept busy, often working 12 or more hours a day. Synthesized cure was administered to volunteers shortly after your arrival. Of course, the only way to make sure that it was working was to treat them with Ava as well. They knew full well that if the cure was not effective, they'd be cast from the bunker. Your own days are long and boring, and you itch to get out there. Out of here. Hours turn into days, days into weeks. Finally, Charlotte bursts into the tiny room you've made your own without so much as a knock. She grins from ear to ear. They reckon they've done it. The cure is effective, and it can't undo the damage. The cure is effective. It can't undo the damage that Ava has done. But if the cure is administered before Ava can advance, it seems to keep the infection from mutating at all. Subject K is defeated. And while Ava still ravages the land looking for soil to grow greed and madness, there is now a tool that could end that as well. Charlotte is blossoming in her work. So in a way, this is now the end that might justify the means she was involved in. They will mass produce the cure and send batches of it all to remaining survivors. Batches of it to all remaining survivors. The hope remains that it is only a matter of time until Ava is completely eradicated. As happy as you are with this news, you decide you can't stay here. You have no purpose in this place and haven't seen the sun in weeks. Charlotte understands and agrees that you should take Lab with you as a companion. You say your goodbyes and load your RV with provisions and a crate of the cure for anyone you might come across, any people you might come across. You don't know yet where you're going, but you're going there with the best friend, and the future is brighter than it has been in a long time. You always wanted to retire to a farm. I'll go ahead and let this play out.
Yeah! Seriously? Oh, for God's sake! What a fucking wank! Good girl! Yes! Great bunch of lads! That was amazing!
And that is the story of Gross. From here, I probably will do some endless content, but probably not in the recorded format that I've been doing for the story stuff. The recording of the story stuff has mostly just been an experiment for me to get a little more experience with recording and editing content, just to kind of see how it fits into my general flow of what I'm doing for content on this channel. And it was fun. It was a good little kind of stretch my legs out thing. I don't know how I'm going to apply it going forward, but I think for the rest of whatever I do on Gross is going to be endless and probably on stream. I think the only other non-endless stuff I might do, and it's still on stream, would probably just be to go through everything on Ultra again. But yeah. Felt good to finally get that done, and I gotta tell you, the whole time I was actually extra stressed out because that recording came at the end of like several attempts. Oh, and this I hadn't noticed before. If this was here, I didn't notice it. I was like, what's this? And you can play catch with the dog. This is like the best way to end this whole thing. You can just play catch with the dog here on your farm. What better way to retire? Hell yeah. So that's going to be it for me for Gross. Thank you for tuning in. And I assume I'll probably catch you later with more Gross later, but I think for now I definitely need a break. But that's it for me for now. Take care, and I'll see you next time.